I'll attempt to answer here. So first, we're not talking about one state in this model. We're talking about two states, but in one space. That's an important distinction to be made. I'm a Jerusalemite myself. And your question as to what would happen to Jerusalemites, the idea is that there will be like a Palestinian part of Jerusalem. You know, there will be, but that I will have to, I will have to choose my citizenship, or in this case, if I would become a Palestinian citizen in a shared city, because I guess that's the model that we are talking about. So that's to answer simply. With regards to the question about the Palestinians in Israel, I want to make a general comment about sort of the general direction of the questions, which is we're still asking the questions from a place of fear, the questions that I am hearing. And also, like Chaim's pointing to the checkpoints around Jerusalem, that's also still a way of thinking that is very much nurturing fear. And I would also like ask for everybody involved in this research, as well as the audience, because if we want to make a change, we need to kind of also change the mindset to one of trust. So the laws and regulations, the granting of rights has to become something different, and that's something where we need to go with the leaderships and advise on policies that some things are not compromisable. You know, that we need first and foremost to guarantee certain rights. We don't want to repeat the same mistakes that we have done in the past. So the mechanism of granting rights is very important.
Okay, somebody wants to take on the colonialism?
The Albi Bridge first. First, the technical one that I can simply answer, not the one I don't have any good answer for because it's a good point. Right. So on that point, yes, we did think it. That point we did think through. The first answer is, as opposed to the Albi Bridge as opposed to the Albi Bridge as the main route to get out of Palestine, Palestine would have two airports, one in the Jordan Valley, one in Gaza. They would be operated by, they would be under the Palestinian Airport Administration, very much, well, Palestine will decide how to operate, but they wouldn't be under Israeli supervision, they would be Palestinian. It would be in the first stages with
under Israeli supervision?
No, Palestinian. Okay. With the assistance of an international force at the very early stage. Same for ports, with a floating port outside of Gaza and autonomous piers in Ashdod. These are a range of possibilities that we're exploring, but the main route for Palestinians who want to leave Palestine would be Palestinian airports, just like the Ben Gurion airport is the default route for Israelis. So that would answer part of the question. In terms of the external crossings, again, there would be no Israeli presence in the external crossing. There would be electronic surveillance technology that Israel would have access to, but it would be managed by Palestinians.
No, just I'm a Palestinian. I want to cross Arabi Bridge.
Yes.
Okay, at that idea, how could I deal with the cross-check?
And I think Jordan has refused this idea.
Oh yeah, we're not talking about whether this would happen now.
Ideas. I'm not talking as a Jordan.
So no. Okay, so this, yes, absolutely. But what we did in the security group is we were given some parameters, and we had a few people who came from a military background and sort of say, can you live with this? And worked on that. They could live with Palestinian airports, they could live with external checkpoints where no Israeli present, they could live with transitioning the control of the Albi Bridge. Okay? Could Jordan live with it? I have a big question mark, but that was not part of the mandate. On the colonialism part, that definitely was not So, and I can give you more of the details after, but in other words, we try to think about that. And I think on that particular issue, there are some solutions. On the broader question of colonialism, that's not something that INES has obviously dealt with. It's definitely not part of the exercise we had. We dealt with what are the security implications of A, B, and C, where we're given parameters. And oftentimes the discussion in our group shifted of, is this even desirable, is this even feasible? And as a facilitator, I tried to get it back to, is this something Israel could live with it as it is today? So that was the frame we had. The imbalance in the power structure is a reality. The only way to change that is to work to change that in reality. So you can give equality of rights, and you could say the two parties have equal status, but when it comes to security, if one side doesn't have the equipment, the training, and the personnel to do it, that power imbalance will continue until you invest in making sure that both security sectors are strong.
Does anybody want to tackle the colonialism question? Oh, okay.
I don't want to talk about it.
Oh, okay. So I think there's a call.
Okay.
Oh, you can start with that.
You have a take.
Okay, but let who doesn't speak first, and then you can and then.
Okay, I'll address that question from my experience talking with the Palestinian refugees. In the first generation of refugees, the image is a white colonizer. The reference is a white colonizer. They did not even say the word Jewish or Jews that much. The third generation, and depending on if we are talking to us, a refugee in El Fawad or Dheshi, it's occupation. In Lebanon is Israel doesn't have the right to exist, etc., etc., the whole thing. But the old generation is referring to it as another form of colonization. They see themselves as colonized who refuse colonizations, as Albert Memmi put it.
I think we have to be, Noah asked first, sorry, and then you, and then we have to be quite short. 2 more questions after this, and we will wrap up.
Just in reference to the question about colonialism, I wanted to say something short and personal. That one of the first conversations that I had working on this on the question of the return of the refugees and practicalities of the return of the refugees was with the refugee from Manshia. Manshia is a neighborhood part of Jaffa today and not existing today. And my personal story is my father's family arrived to Israel in '48 from a refugee camp in France after World War II, where my father was born. And the refugee camp in France was evicted to Israel once the declaration of independence was given. So once the declaration of independence was given, the Jewish refugees from France fleeted to Israel and received an empty house that was just evicted from its Palestinian inhabitants. So my father's family lived in a Palestinian house that was emptied maybe days before they have arrived. They've seen the toys in the children's room, they have seen the food in the kitchen, and that's how they lived. And from this personal and family experience, I grew to the phase of needing to decolonize. The decolonization needs first a discussion about redistribution of land and resources between the Jews, who are now, even if they are colonized, they are also refugees, and they are also part of this land because 3 generations after they are part of these lands. So the colonizers and the natives are now mixed, and the original natives have been uprooted and need to return. And all these communities together need to be the new natives of this area. And in order to do this process, and decolonization is not a magic, it's a process. That's why we need these phases of these phases of redistribution of land, of re-inhabitation of the people who were fleed out of here, and reconciliation of these different communities. I think that decolonization is actually not absent from this discussion, but was actually the root of it.
Okay, but maybe not explicitly. Ofer, and then 2 more questions, and then we'll have to end it. Will be Hillel and you in the back. Yeah.
We have a question.
We have, okay, 3 more questions if everybody has patience for it.
I would just like to mention, first of all, I have exactly the same story with my family because my father is a Holocaust survivor and he came to a Palestinian village named Yazur. Today it's Azur, and the kettle perhaps was still boiling when they entered, but they did not see the Palestinians. So amazingly, it's exactly the same story just heard. I would like to talk about colonialism from a different perspective. When I worked for the Israeli-Palestinian Bereaved Family Forum, my friend, one of the founders, Ronnie Hirschensohn, who lost 2 of his sons because of this conflict, said, I'm willing to forgive and forget when somebody would bring my sons back. So we are not talking about ultimate justice here. When we talk about conflicts which are this bitter and so many people have died, we have to relinquish idealistic notions that are currently putting us away from resolution. I want my daughters to live in a place which is more secure. I want to have peace for them. And this peace and what we offer here is tarnished, is broken, is bad. I would not believe myself to be a supporter of having settlements on the ground. I never go to visit settlements, never. I never cross the Green Line only to visit my Palestinian friends. For me, it's horrendous, but it's better to be realistic and to realize we are dealing with a process and we need to make the first step. To make a first step and don't be so optimistic that we know where we are going to end up. Just think of the Second World War. There are no borders today in Europe. Could you have imagined that in 1948? No. So be a bit optimistic and be more humble about what we can perceive as human beings. Hopefully what we're trying to do here is a good first step in the right direction. Is it ultimate justice? No. Justice for my friend Ronnie Hirschensohn is to have his sons back with him. That would never happen.
Okay, thank you. Hillel, and then a person in the back, and then, yeah. Sorry, start with Hillel. He's been waiting for a long time.
I'm Hillel Schenker, co-editor of the Palestine-Israel Journal. And to quote Don's introduction, I think that the 2 states in 1 space exercise is a very interesting idea. And I agree with what's been said about Jerusalem and also about security. But I'm wondering, why isn't there a settlement workshop? The settlements, I think, is one of the primary problems with the model that you are posing. And to my knowledge, most Palestinians, I know at the Palestine-Israel Journal, there is a refusal by our Palestinian colleagues to allow settlers to write, and we Israelis respect that. And I don't see that as being something that can be accepted within the Palestinian population. Perhaps Shaul Arieli's proposal of saying that 6% mutual land swap, which would enable 80% of the settlers to be within Israel, and the rest would have to leave, that might be more realistic. My second point or question has to do with the right of return and the refugees. I think that giving voice to the voiceless was very moving and very important. And I very much also respect and agree with the principle of the right of return. The question is the practicality. Is it implementable? And I recall the fact that Khalil Shkaki did a research survey while Yasser Arafat was still alive.
2003.
And he went to the refugee camps in the West Bank, Gaza, Lebanon, Syria, etc., and 95% of them said, we want, but we realize that we will not return.
Okay. You didn't tell the end of the story. That when he presented the data, there was like an actual riot when he presented it among Palestinians.
Yeah, he presented it to Arafat, and Arafat said, what are you doing? You're undermining our negotiating position. And Shkaki said, I am a scientist. These are my findings.
Okay, we have somebody in the back, way in the back. Please remember to try to say your name and where you're from. And again, target your questions if you can to somebody. If not, it's fine.
Okay. My name is Orlando. I'm from the US. I had twofold question. One thing that I haven't heard on the panel, and maybe this is for all panelists, is I didn't hear anything about the education systems and how this kind of implementation would go to the root of where you would get backing for these people, which is within the education systems, which currently do not address any of the issues we've been talking about today. And kind of on that level, and I think this is more for what I heard on immigration policy, a lot of it focused on right of return, etc. But I wonder how the committee, and I think this is tied to maybe the other question we heard a bit on colonialism, but how immigration would address also institutions that exist like Taglit and Aliyah, and if these infrastructures would also be changed, because in nature they do not follow what would be the basis of this plan, which would be integration. It would still be following a Zionist idea, which does not seem to fit in also into this plan, or does it? And how would that be integrated within that educational process and systems?
Okay, last question. I'm very sorry, guys. If you have a lot to say, believe me, I have tons to say, but we're just going to have one last question and then end the session. Yes, the person. Yeah, you. No. Right. Yes.
طيب السلام عليكم أولا. يعني أولا بدي أعلق قليل جدا على موضوع الدولتين في فضاء واحد. طبعا هاي احنا اليوم نتكلم عنها بعد 20 سنة مفاوضات على الفصل، نقول انه فشلنا. قبل 5 سنوات كنا نتناقش على الدولة الواحدة، وكأنه اليوم نعلن عن فشلنا في الدولة الواحدة. طيب متى سيتوضح لنا انه هذا الحل يمكن ان ينجح؟ ولكن أنا بقول طبعا لأصحاب هذه الفكرة المشكورين على فكرتهم طبعا. لا بعرف. قلت في نموذج مصغر بإطار السيطرة الإسرائيلية كاملة. إذا نجح هذا النموذج الصغير يمكن أن نعممه على الطرفين. في عندنا احنا القدس موجودة وهي عاصمة الطرفين. هل يمكن أن نصنع نموذجين، نسخة عن النموذج المقترح في إطار فضاء واحد؟ حتى ما نضيع الوقت. إذا نجحت في هذا النموذج يمكن تعميمه على الباقي، حتى جنين وحتى غزة وحتى عكا وحتى إيلات. ولكن إذا ما نجحتوش ما فيش داعي للعبث. يعني هذه الشعوب مش فار مختبرات، مش كل يعني نجري عليها. هذا واحد. هذا النقطة الثانية في الموضوع الأمني، وأنا بتبنى على الأخت اللي بتشترك في البحث الأمني إنها تسمع وجهة النظر الفلسطينية في هذا الجانب. فيش احتياج إسرائيلي للوجود في الأغوار عسكريا. يا أصدقائنا الأردن مش كوريا الشمالية. الأردن دولة عاملة بسلام. هي مومنت الأردن هي اللي أنا أتحدى اطلعوا وفد من هون وامشوا من البحر الميت حتى بيسان لن تجدوا جندي إسرائيلي على الحدود. وفي كل يوم الصبح دورية من 3 جنود بيكشفوا على الطريق إنه في حد عبر وما حدش عبر. مشكلة الأغوار فيها استثمار لكبار الضباط، لكبار المسؤولين في زراعة التمور. بعدين النقطة الأخيرة بدي كلمة، احنا بنوافق جيبوا قوات الناتو، قوات أمريكية، قوات أخرى على الحدود تحل المشكلة. السلام ليس صعبا. شكرا. السلام ليس صعبا.